Okay, so this is, again, operations budgets. Basically, what we're doing with this stuff is putting together an income statement. And it's not as fancy as the income statements we did in chapter 3, but does follow kind of some of this one actually follows the format a little bit, which I kind of like because it refreshes what we did before. So I'm gonna share my screen. That's the wrong one. So let me try again. There we go. All right. So I made the presumption that you guys did it. And so you'll have a lot of this stuff typed because I left all this stuff typed in. And this was just the information that we had. So we have a room only property. We're doing it for a full year for 365 days. We're figuring out the room revenue. And so what they've done is they've broken down the number of rooms for us. So this is a per day thing. So per day, singles 30, doubles 40, suites 30. They gave us the occupancy percentage, which was 70, 60, 80. And they gave us the ADR, which I took out here. Let me put back in. Okay. And they also gave us 4% is other revenue. And then they broke down the expenses. So we had room expenses, labor, we have a fixed and a variable. Now this one, it says the variable should be the percentage of room sales. The one we did the other day in class was the variable was a percentage of total sales. So just watch that. Supplies were $5 a room. Other room expenses, we had fixed and we had variable. So that's kind of what I have down here. Undistributed expenses. Okay, so this is like the middle section that we did on our income statements. We have A&G fixed and variable. Marketing, sales and marketing, fixed and variable. They broke the franchise fee out because we have to calculate that. Maintenance, fixed and variable, and energy, fixed and variable. Again, follows that middle section on the income statement. And this actually follows the bottom part. We had insurance, property taxes. They were fixed amounts. Depreciation was a fixed amount. Because if you recall from doing the income statement, these are things we couldn't change. We have to calculate our interest. And so that'll give us our total expenses. Subtract our total expenses from our total revenue to get our income before tax. Calculate our tax. In this case, the tax rate is 20%. Subtract that off and get our net income. So it's basically a setup very similar to categories, very similar to what we were doing in chapter 3. Okay, so where would you start?
I calculated just my total rooms sold for the year.
Okay, so if we do
What I did.
rooms per day
Yeah.
here, and then if we do the rooms per year,
Yeah, I had just done it all as per year as, you know, the 30 times 70% times 365.
yeah, that's exactly what I did too, but I'm just gonna break it out a little bit. So rooms per day, we would take the occupancy percentage times the individual rooms. So we would take this 30 times the 70%. And then we would just do that for each. So these are the number of rooms you're going to sell per day. We're doing this for a year, even though they gave us X8, which is technically a leap year, they told us to use 365. So to get your yearly rooms, you're going to take your daily times the 365. And that will give us our rooms. And then to find the sales, we're going to take our rooms times our ADR. To get our sales. Okay, questions? So those are our room sales. And so we probably should total those because our expenses are based on room sales. So those will be our room sales. Okay. We have to calculate our other revenue. And so our other revenue is going to be, this is going to be 96%. Our other revenue is going to be 4%. So what we're going to have to do is find the total revenue. Oh my goodness. And we're going to do that by doing algebra. By taking the sales, room sales, and dividing it by 0.96. And that will give us our total sales. And then to find our other, we're just going to subtract. So that gives us our other revenue. All right, questions on the revenue part? Okay, and let's go onward. So we have fixed and we have variable. So our fixed for labor was 100,000. Okay, fixed was the fixed was And then we have to calculate the variable piece. And the variable piece of labor is going to be 15%. And it's 15% of total sales. So we can just do this and times 0.15. And so that would give us our variable labor.
Isn't it a percentage of room sales?
Yes, you are correct. I looked at that just as I put that in there. Oh my goodness. Start again. There we go. Okay, so our supplies are $5 per room. So what we need to go do up here is total up the number of rooms that we have. And then we can bring that down here. And so to get our supplies, we're going to just take this times 5. And so that will give us our supplies. We have other room fixed of 10 and other room variable of 2%.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the other revenue for 4%, how did you get the 94,900?
Took the total. Were you okay with this part?
No, the step above.
No, but were you okay with this?
Yeah.
Took the difference between these two.
Oh, okay. I see. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so fixed. This one was just rooms times 5. And then these two were room sales times the various percentages. And that will give us our total room expenses. So with our income statements that we used to do, this would all be on that room line in the top part. Because we'd have our labor total in the payroll column. And then the rest of that would be in the other expense column. Questions? Okay, let's keep going. So A and G, we had fixed 15 or 150. And then we had a variable. Again, percentage of room sales. In this case, only 3%. Sales and marketing, we had fixed of 30. And then we had a variable of 6%. Franchise fee was exactly the same thing. Okay. Scroll down here. We had maintenance fixed of 60,000. And then we had a variable of 4%. We had energy that was fixed of 30. Variable of 4%. And that was it. So our total undistributed expenses would be all of these added up. Questions on those? Okay. Under our fixed charges, they were pretty much fixed amounts, as we know from doing the income statements. So insurance was 20. Property taxes was 40. And depreciation was 50. And those are our total fixed charges. And then we had to calculate our interest. So they told us with the interest, the average debt was $1 million. Average percent, 8%. And again, we're doing this for 1 year. So we're going to do our I equals PRT. And so we're simply going to take this and just multiply. And our time factor would be a year, so we could just do that there. Actually, I'm going to move this over here. Okay. So now we're going to add up our expenses. And so we need the interest, the fixed, the undistributed, and the room expenses. To get our income before taxes, we're going to take our total revenue, and we're going to subtract off our expenses that we have. Calculate our tax. Remember, smallest number possible. We're going to take that and we're going to multiply by 20% to get our net income. We're going to subtract that off our income before taxes. And then we have our net income. All right. Typical operations budget. Okay. Honestly, you do what they tell you to do. Got to have some knowledge here, but that's stuff we've already done. To figure out your rooms, figure out based on the rooms. In this case, they gave us the rooms and then occupancy for each kind of room so that we can figure out our room per day. Multiply it by 365 to get your yearly rooms, because we're doing this for 365. To find your sales, you're just taking your rooms times your sale price. This one, just remember, is algebra. Dividing what you already have by its percent of the total will give you the total. And then to find out the other revenue, you just subtract those two. Expenses, you had fixed, you had variable, and you had this one, which was a per room. So you have really everything that it can be. Fixed stays the same. Variable in this case was based on room sales. So it's simply just multiplying and then basically adding up all your expenses. We had to calculate interest, but again, you've done that a gazillion times. Add up all your expenses, subtract that from your revenue, get your income before taxes, and then calculate your income taxes based on that small number. And that gives us the net income. Questions? Okay, so this is what we're gonna do since we have time. And so now we'll get to see who's really here today. So we're gonna go to number 1, and I'm gonna give you about 15 minutes to do it, and then we're gonna go over it. And so maybe we'll just take a note of who's here and I'll call on you. So let's look at number 1. Page 526. So this is the prior January actuals. What we're trying to do is figure out what the next January is going to be. The first thing that you should notice is they didn't give us the percentages for the variables. We have to calculate those. They expect that sales will increase by 10%. So the first thing you need to do is find the new sale number. Then you're going to have to find all the percentages for the variable costs based on last year's data. So we're all getting the same numbers because you're going to be finding percentages. So when you find your percents, I want at least 2 places, everybody do 2 places to the right of the decimal. So you would have your number of your percent, dot, and then 2 places. And that way we'll all have the same numbers. This one doesn't have an income tax, so don't worry about it. Your fixed charges will stay the same. And this is really a typical way that people do it because they figure that their percentages are going to stay pretty steady. And so they estimate the new sale number. And it's like we talked about in the last chapter, everything is based on that new sale number. So if that's a terrible estimation, none of the other stuff that you're going to do is going to be good. Okay. So it is 9:25. You have 15 minutes. I'm going to go do it on my other computer and then I'll send it over. So get to work. It's going to be a work day. If you have any questions as you're going, just ask. I'm not going anywhere.
I believe someone had a question in the chat, Mr.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm not paying attention to your chats. Problem number 1. It's on page 526. It's the very first problem in chapter 10. Thanks, John. Was so busy doing my homework here. Make sure you notice down there, it says fixed costs are gonna increase by 100 or by 5%.
We're just rounding the budget number to the whole dollar, correct?
Yeah,
You
I
wanted
left
the
mine out.
decimal to 2 points.
I
but-
have mine at 2 points, but rounding is
Oh.
fine. I don't care either way.
But you did say take the percentage of sales to 2 decimals, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna do this quick. Let me get her open. Go back and share. Okay, so here's what we had to do with this one. The first thing you had to do was your new sale number, and they told you sales increased by 10%. So you took the old sale number, multiplied by 110, and that gives you your new sale number. And then you don't do anything with that for a bit. We have to go through and figure out what the variable percentages will be. Fixed percents, they said increased by 5%. So I try to color code it here. So the blue ones were all your fixed charges. So I took all of last year's and multiplied them by 105% because they were increasing by 5%. So this gave you your new fixed charges. Had nothing to do with the sale numbers, was just simply being increased by 5%. Questions there? Okay. Any of the variables, we had to figure out what the percentages were, and it had to be based on what we already had. So the information that we had was the previous year. So to get these percentages, you're going to take the variable costs, divide by the old sale units. Because again, as I mentioned before, variable costs have a tendency to stay fairly consistent as far as percentages. You're going to have fluky things that happened once in a while. I mean, when you guys probably don't even remember, but several years ago, gas prices all of a sudden doubled. So transportation costs, costs of your sales, those things would have changed because now you had to pay out more money for those. So all of the red ones, we had to go find the percentages first, and then to get these numbers, use these percentages times the new sales number. And that's all it is. Taking the percentages we found times the new sale numbers. Add up the expenses, subtract it from sales, gives you your net income before taxes. So this one, they didn't give us an income tax. So this is just the net income before taxes. All right, questions? We're good? Okay, so let me see. You have a homework assignment that is due tonight. Just gonna go refresh my brain as to what it was. Okay, so the assignment you have for tonight is number 3. And just make sure you look at what I wrote on Venkel Hall, just a couple little hints on there. And just follow the instructions. All right. Questions? Okay, I'll see you on Friday.
Thanks.
So I will get those
Have a good-
graded tomorrow, and then what we'll do on Friday is we'll go over those and then we'll start the variances.